Sorry for the delay. I left the office at 16th and Indian School at 10 to 5 and just walked in the door. So now there's no traffic problems here.
Not at all.
So just give me one moment and I'll be right with you. We'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. We will get started tonight with an opening statement. Oh, first we'll go through roll call. Vice Chairman Jeff Nelson.
Present.
Secretary Jay Lusky.
Present.
Member Brian Patterson.
Present.
Member Bill Lewis.
Present.
Member Clay Alsop.
Present.
Member Joanna Condi. And alternate member John Albright. Present. Wow, we have a full slate tonight. So I'm going to get started by reading an opening statement. I keep these on a note here, so I try and make it look like I'm not reading it, but I actually am. The commission is composed of Peoria citizens who've been appointed by the City Council to serve on the commission as a civic responsibility without compensation. Our duty is to study and review planning and zoning issues within our city and then forward our recommendations to the City Council. All hearings are conducted in accordance with Robert Rules of Order, and each case will be called in the order which it appears on the agenda unless announced during the meeting. In the interest of maintaining a fair and efficient hearing, the Commission adheres to the following steps. The chairperson will call the case, staff will give a brief report and a recommendation. The applicant will give a presentation, opposition and support will give testimony, and we limit that to 3 minutes per speaker, please. Applicant may give rebuttal, and then Commission discussion and decision. Anyone wishing to speak must complete a speaker's request form and hand it to the planning assistant down at the end of the dais. Anyone wishing to protest the decision of the Commission public hearing item must request a second public hearing before the City Council. The request must be submitted in writing to the Planning and Community Development Department within 10 days after the Commission's hearing. All Commission recommendations on public hearing items will move forward to a regular City Council meeting. The City Council will then act upon the recommendation of the Commission. They may concur with the decision, modify it, or overturn it. We welcome citizens' comments, and as fellow citizens of Peoria, we thank you in advance for your participation. So this will be the final call to submit speaker request forms. If you will, please submit them to the end of the dais to the planning assistant. So on today's agenda, we have a consent. We have the consent agenda, and we have tonight, I know there's more than two, 3 items. We have 3 items. Item 1C, this disposition of absence, the discussion and possible action to approve and or excuse the absences of Chair Sean Hutchinson and Secretary Jay Lusky from the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting held on November 16th of 2017. Item 2C, discuss and possible action to approve the minutes of the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting held on November 16th of 2017. And item 3C, that is CU 17-15, Top Rocker Tattoo. A request to obtain a conditional use permit for a tattoo studio. The site is located in northwest corner of 83rd Avenue and Cactus Road within the Safeway Shopping Center and is zoned intermediate commercial C2. Okay, and as far as the consent agenda, all items listed on the consent agenda are considered to be routine or have been previously reviewed by the Commission and will be enacted by one motion. That being said, do I have a motion on the consent agenda tonight?
Mr. Chairman, I move for approval of the consent agenda as presented.
Okay, moved by Commissioner Lewis, seconded by Commissioner Joanna Condi. Please vote on the consent agenda. Okay, the consent agenda passes unanimously. Next up on the agenda, we have unfinished business. We have item 4R on the agenda, which is Z17-23, 71st and Thunderbird annexation, initial zoning. This will be a public hearing, will be held to consider a request to apply initial zoning to 3 parcels totaling 11.82 acres that were recently annexed from Maricopa County Residential Unit Plan Development to the City of Peoria Planned Area Development. The property is located at the northwest corner at 71st Avenue and Thunderbird Road. Can we hear the report from staff?
Yes, good evening, Chairman Hutchison, Commissioners. Tonight I'll be presenting case Z17-23, the initial zoning for 71st and Thunderbird. The city has initiated this zoning case due to the recent annexation of the 11.82 acre property, which is located at the northwest corner of 71st Avenue and Thunderbird Road. The request is to zone the property from Maricopa County Residential Unit Plan of Development to a similar zoning district, which in this case is Planned Area Development. The majority of the property is vacant, with the exception of a few single-family residences along the northern portion and the southeast portion of the property. A gated single-family development is the proposed use for this site. Maricopa County approved this use back on May 10, 2017, which allows 30 single-family detached homes with a minimum lot size of 10,000 square feet, and the proposed PAD zoning district will preserve these entitlements. The surrounding area consists of Redfield single-family subdivision to the north, which has lots ranging from under half an acre to an acre. To the east is Longhorn Ranch, which is a single-family subdivision that consists of acre lots. Sorry. To the south is Tierra Norte, single-family subdivision, which consists of 10,000 square foot lots. And to the west is unannexed property, which is mainly vacant, with the exception of a few single-family residences. The subject property was rezoned from Maricopa County Rural 43 to RUPD on May 10, 2017. The property was then annexed into Peoria on November 28, 2017. State statute requires that the initial zoning process begin within 6 months following the annexation, and that the previous county zoning district and proposed city zoning district are similar in density and uses. A planned area development is the closest equivalent zoning district to Maricopa County's RUPD because both require a standards and guidelines report. Therefore, the PAD can preserve the entitlement that has been granted through Maricopa County. There are also stipulations that were approved by the Maricopa County Board of Supervisors that will also transfer over, and these stipulations have been refined to align with Peoria processes. The key findings in this case have been met. The property has been annexed, and all state statutes to include timelines have been met. Staff asks that you recommend approval of the City Council, recommend approval to the City Council of case Z17-23, 71st and Thunderbird initial zoning, and staff and the applicant are available for any questions you have.
Okay, do we have any questions of staff before we open the public hearing? Commissioner Nelson.
Thank you, Chairman. I have several questions on this one. First of all, why the PAD approach on zoning versus a straight-up R118 zoning?
Chair, Commissioner, the reason we had to do planned area development is because it did receive the RUPD zoning through Maricopa County. So they have their own specific development standards. These development standards don't quite align with any of our hard zoning. Therefore, that's why we had to use the planned area development so we could carry over the standard guidelines that was already approved.
So point of clarification on that. So there were two bullets that seem to kind of conflict with each other. One saying it needed to be equal to the county zoning. The other, where I've read elsewhere, is that, and I think you have in this bullet here, is that just no more denser than the county zoning. Which is it? Do we have to be in alignment as close as possible with county, or does that just set the high bar maximum, the county zoning?
We need to be as close as possible.
Okay.
And for us to be as close as possible is the planned area development route.
Chair Hutchinson, Commissioners, maybe I can provide a little bit of clarification on that. The state statute requires that the initial zoning that we apply be no more intense or no more dense than the previous county zoning. Now, in doing that, what we do is we try to select the most similar or most analogous zoning district that is closely associated with that in the county.
Okay.
And in this case, as Ms. Faustino said, the project went through a entitlement in the county. They went through an RUPD, which is very similar to our PAD, where you can craft specific standards that relate to the context of that project. So what we're doing with the PAD is essentially carrying over that entitlement that was already approved through the county and giving them our PAD with the same entitlement.
Okay. So the general plan, if I may continue, so the general plan lays this out as very low density. We're putting in probably 2 to 4 times what the surrounding density is, excluding, I know the applicant points to south of Thunderbird Road, but really we're talking about the 3 sides of this on the north side of Thunderbird. I'm trying to understand why staff would recommend this be appropriate when the general plan is actually dictating we be no more than 2 dwelling units per acre, preferably 1. Tell me just the thoughts of staff on that.
Commissioner Nelson, because the applicant chose to receive the entitlement through Maricopa County, staff didn't really have any say in terms of whether or not we could carry it over that way. Per the state statute, we have to meet something that's equivalent. And they do fall over the target, but they're at 2.36 in terms of their dwelling units per acre and low density 0 to 2. And all surrounding it, we have the, you have the R110 right across the street. Right next to it, you do have the acre, but right above you have the half acre to an acre. So I think it does somewhat kind of fill the area out nicely. And of course, we don't know yet what's going to happen to the east or to the west.
So do I understand correctly that we're talking about minimum sizes of, or lot sizes averaging, or a minimum of 10,000 square feet?
Minimum of 10,000
So
square
maybe
feet.
the applicant can address what the average lot size is, or do you know that?
The average lot size, they are around 10,000. There's nothing under 10, and there's not much more over.
So they're all pretty
Pretty
similar,
much
comparable to about 10,000 square feet?
They are going through the pre-plat process right now. It hasn't been approved yet because it does need to go through this initial zoning before it can be approved, but we're still reviewing that right now.
And that will come back before the commission
The preliminary plat does not come before the commission.
because it's a PAD?
No, because preliminary plats are approved by staff, and then final plats get approved by city council.
It goes, okay. Thank you for the clarification.
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, I think it's also important to point out that the project went through an entitlement process in the county. So it's similar to ours in that there is a public process that's attached to that. So residents within the area had the opportunity to participate in that entitlement. And so it went through that process. What we're trying to do here is really kind of a perfunctory move in trying to just observe what the county had approved and follow the state statute.
The last question I have is, I was reading the report from the developer, and it said it would allow for a 10-foot wall surrounding, and tell me if this is outside the scope of what we're talking about tonight, but through the RUPD, a 10-foot wall around this development seems really high to me. And it uses some terms I'm not familiar with, like a dually wall. Can you explain what that is?
I think I can have somebody explain it better than me
And
in terms of dually
Before
wall.
I ask the applicant, I'm happy to do that.
Chairman Hutchinson, Commissioners. So a dually wall is just a masonry wall. It's kind of your standard 4-inch wide by 8-inch tall masonry unit block, and then it's just a standard masonry wall. As far as the height goes, we're really, that's kind of beyond what we're trying to do tonight. The city really is the applicant. We're trying to establish that initial zoning.
The initial zoning, right?
Yeah, that was
I just never heard
established
that
during the
term
county.
before, and that one kind of caught my eye, so, okay.
I can say, though, for the 10-foot, they do have that in their development plan, I'm sorry, in their design guidelines, but they are not set on the 10-foot. They just have that capability. And of course, the zoning ordinances allow for that much, but they do have that standard. But right now, they're not, it doesn't look as if they're going that high.
It's good to hear. Thank you. That's all I have. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, is there any other questions of staff before we open a public hearing? Okay. With that, we'll open the public hearing. And is the applicant here? Would you like to speak?
Do you guys want me to be happy to?
That's an interesting one. Okay. If you don't wish to speak, that's fine.
Since I'm new at this, my question is, it's going to be 10,000 square foot blocks minimum? Excuse me, I have no idea. Anyway, is that the intent? What is the intent? I guess I'd like to hear from you about what you're planning to do with that.
So do I speak from here? This is my first time.
Yeah, oh, I'm sorry, yeah, would you please approach the podium and please give your name and address for the record?
All right, commissioners, thank you very much. My name is Tyler Wilson. I work for Hilgard Wilson, representing the client, so, which is the developer. I apologize, not that I didn't want to speak, I've just, kind of new to the process. So, thank you for your question. So to answer your question, I think you'd asked about the average lot size, correct? Yeah, so the average, the minimum is 10,000 and the average lot size overall is 10,757 square feet.
And they're going to be residential properties, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I just wanted, somehow or other, I got it confused and I wanted to clarify. Well, that's nice. I've gone by that property for 30 years now and wondered why something hasn't been done to it, so.
We've got a few people in the office that live nearby, and from what we hear, everyone's pretty excited that this garbage of plants is going to be developed, so.
Yeah, it would fit in. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, anybody else, questions for the applicant?
Yeah, Leah.
Commissioner Nelson?
Can you speak to the access on 71st versus Thunderbird? I thought that was kind of curious. Was that just because it's such a busy road and having to get up to speed quickly? Tell me what the thought process was on why it was laid out, if that's within, I'm looking to staff here, am I within my realm to ask that? I know we're talking about a zoning issue here, but.
Commissioner Nelson, yeah, you're certainly welcome to ask. Again, just a reminder, we're the applicant on this. We're trying to establish that initial zoning, but if there's
Yeah.
discussions about
I'm
the-
just curious
No
on the way it was laid out on the background materials.
Sure.
Yeah.
There was a traffic study done, and I don't remember, personally, I didn't do it, that we use a sub-consultant on that. But from my understanding, Thunderbird is much too busy of a road to have an access to that. And I'm pretty sure even staff had said that is not even allowed to enter on Thunderbird because of the speeds and the volumes of traffic. So 71st Avenue is much preferable. And with that, we will be improving 71st Avenue as well.
Great, thank you.
Sure.
See what my damn thing, okay. Okay, no other questions for the applicant? All right, seeing none, thank you very much.
Thank
I'm going to
you.
go ahead
Thank
and
you,
close the
Jennifer.
public hearing. Are there any further comments or questions from the commissioners? No, with that, seeing none, do I have a motion on, let me get out the number again. Oh, yeah, a motion on Z 17-23. Commissioner Alsop?
Commissioner, Chairman, I motion to approve Z 17-23.
Okay, I have a motion to approve. Can you get a second?
I'll second that.
We have a second. Go ahead and let's vote on Z 17-23. Okay, it passes with one abstention.
One no.
One no, I'm sorry, not abstention. Okay, moving on then. I'm in the wrong one now. That's what I get for being late. Where's my agenda? There we go. Okay, moving on to new business. Sorry about that, I'm flipping pages. I'm really, arriving late really doesn't help. We're going to move on to new business 5R. We have GPA 17-03, southwest corner of 83rd Avenue and Happy Valley Road. Request for a minor amendment to the general plan land use map redesignation approximately 2.85 acres from estate density residential, that is 0 to 2 dwelling units per acre, low-density residential, 2 to 5 dwelling units per acre, and park open space, max 1 dwelling unit per acre, to office for future development of 2 one-story office buildings. The property is located at the southwest corner of 83rd Avenue and Happy Valley Road. Staff, can you give the report?
Good evening, Chair Hutchinson, members of commission. Happy holidays. I'll actually be presenting items 5R and 6R together. One is for the general plan land use amendment. The second is the corresponding rezoning application that's going with that. The applicant for this project is Michael Hall. As mentioned, this project size is approximately 2.85 acres, and the project name and project location would be the same in this instance. It is the southwest corner of 83rd Avenue and Happy Valley. There are two requests this evening. The first is item 5R. This is the general plan amendment from Park Open Space, estate density residential and low density residential to an office designation, as well as a rezoning application from Suburban Ranch 43, that is SR 43, to office commercial, otherwise known as O1. On the screen you can see our vicinity map. To the immediate east is the proposed and currently under construction 83 Marketplace. There is a 230-foot power line corridor that runs along the south end of the property, and then there are some single-family residential units south of there. To the north and west of the project is Sunrise Mountain, a City of Peoria preserve, and there is the proposed and entitled Alora Vita to the north and east of this site. Taking a closer look, you can see that it is at the absolute hard corner of this intersection and will be accessed from Happy Valley Road and from 83rd Avenue. The current general plan has three designations on these two combined parcels. Estate density residential is to the west and north. Low density is to the north and east. And a majority of the parcel is actually designated for park and open space. This is certainly doesn't further the general plan goals and objectives. This is been in place since the previous general plan that's currently under review for an update from 2008. The park and open space designation along the power door does correspond with an area of open space. However, the remainder of the site being designated as park and open space does not carry forward our goals and objectives and does not really align with anything in particular. The request this evening for the first one, 5R, is to redesignate the site for office designation. Now, this designation is pretty uncommon in North Peoria. It's not something that is widely found, but is something that is certainly needed and would advance our goals and objectives for the general plan. The second request, 6R, is the rezoning effort from Suburban Ranch 43. Surrounding this site is SR 43 to the north. Immediately east, again, is the 83 Marketplace that went through a PAD early last year. Some of the SR 43 also spills over to the south along the power line corridor, and everything to the west is currently designated for agricultural. The corresponding rezoning application is to go from SR 43 to O1. Now, this office commercial designation is to provide an environment that's conducive to the establishment of professional offices, medical offices, and possibly some limited retail uses. Now, we did feel like this was an appropriate transition from the power line corridor, which really buffers already the residential subdivisions to the south, and the more intense, but still at a neighborhood scale, commercial development to the east. This is the proposed site plan that corresponds with the two cases this evening. The total square footage is approximately 25,000 square feet, about 1,250 per building. They're almost identical inside. There is a breezeway that attaches the two buildings, and I do apologize. I did mention there was a public art installation that's currently being reviewed to see if that is the appropriate location with our Community Services Department. Now, the parking will be internal to the site, which pushes the buildings towards the intersection and really mirrors the efforts that were in place for 83 Marketplace across the street. In that regard, the conceptual site elevations do correspond and complement what is being proposed for 83 Marketplace across the street. As required, these both applications were noticed in accordance with the zoning ordinance, which includes a notice of application and a notice of hearing. This went to residents within 600 feet of the site and all HOAs registered within 1 mile. The site was also posted along 83rd Avenue and along Happy Valley in accordance with our requirements. To date, we have not received any emails or phone calls regarding this proposal, and we did have a neighborhood meeting back on November 19th. That was at Copper Hills Community Church, which is just north in the West Wing subdivision. That was at 5:30 p.m. Unfortunately, we did not have any members of the public attended. City staff, the applicant, and council member Binsbacher were there to answer any questions. Our findings for both the general plan land use amendment and the rezoning application are as follows. This proposal does provide an appropriate scale development that is compatible with the adjacent developments. And this amendment to our land use map does advance the goals, objectives, and policies of that general plan. We have 2 separate items that will require motions independently of one another. The first is item 5R, the GPA 1703. This, we are asking for a recommendation of approval to City Council. The second is item 6R, Z1721. This, we are also asking for a recommendation of approval to City Council. This one is subject to the conditions outlined in the staff report. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, before we open the public hearing, do we have any questions of staff about this, either the zoning or the general plan amendment? Okay, we will open the public hearing on these items. Oh, we do have one? Yeah, go ahead.
There is the open space designated area that's here. Sorry about that. The open space designation that's here. I have some questions about open space, and was this part of a larger open space designation at one point? Why is it designated? What can you tell me about this open space and the connectivity of it?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Albright, Commissioners, maybe I can answer that question. Unfortunately, we have a few anomalies, a few areas in the city that where the precision is lacking a little bit. This is one of those areas where the park open space doesn't relate to the on-the-ground conditions. We talked about the power line corridor, which does serve as a pedestrian corridor throughout the community. That would relate to a park open space designation. There is nothing on the property that would suggest park open space. Typically, park open space is where we designate areas that are washed corridors and their buffers. It could include areas that have challenging topography. But this is one of those sites where just the general plan requires additional precision, and we intend to, as part of our general plan update, provide that level of precision that we don't currently have.
So this is being looked at as part of that general plan update as well?
Correct, and as we noted in our report, park open space has a maximum of 1 dwelling unit per acre according to state statute. But again, this area, there's no features on the ground. There's nothing that would suggest that park open space is an appropriate designation for this property.
Thank you.
And I have a quick question myself. So it's still the intent that we're going to keep all points west of that at more rooftops?
Chair Hutchinson, members of the commission, the property immediate to the west is owned by the State Land Department. So that's currently designated for, I believe, a state residential, and then the area to the west, irregular shaped property. We saw that case a couple of years ago, Happy Valley 40, that's under construction. But that's correct, rooftops.
And the intent is for right in, right out only on this property? It seems like that's the only way you could do it, but.
Chair Hutchinson, I can address that for you. If you can take a look at the proposed site plan, there is a left-in proposed off of 83rd Avenue that does correspond in a line with the left-in that was granted for 83 Marketplace. So
Okay,
that is
but not
the-
off of Happy Valley.
That's correct. That is way too close to the intersection.
Okay. Okay, with that, I will, can we have the public hearing for both items at once? Okay, so I will open the public hearing. Does any members of the public wish to speak? As the applicant here, would you like to speak? Could you please give your name and address for the record?
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. My name is Mark Reddy with LVA, 120 South Ash Avenue in Tempe, Arizona. I won't give another presentation because I think Randy did a pretty good job of presenting the case, but I'm certainly here to answer questions, but just wanted to reiterate a couple of things. We were also involved in the 83 Marketplace project across the street, and so we're real familiar, and so we were able to work with the city to determine the access points and the left in coming into the project and then right in, right out on Happy Valley Road. We did conduct a neighborhood meeting, as Randy mentioned, on November 9th, and Councilman Binsbacher was there. Nobody else showed up at the meeting, and we have not received any comments from any residents. We did send notification out to several. When we did the project across the street, we had quite a bit of involvement, so we were a little bit surprised, but I think the neighbors support the project. Staff is obviously recommending approval, and we also are in the process of preparing the site plan to submit to the city. We're planning to get that submitted fairly soon, and our intent is, if the zoning is successful, that we will immediately move into building plans and construction documents and hopefully get this project underway very quickly. So with that, we respectfully request your recommendation of approval, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Okay, any of the commissioners have any questions for the applicant? Commissioner Condi.
There, okay. What kind of, I mean, there are plenty of different kinds of office buildings. There's medical office buildings, there's strip mall office buildings where you have, you know, title companies or others. What are you thinking of? What's your target market for your tenants?
It's a good question, Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Condi. Right now, it's being planned as a spec building. I do believe that the owners are actually planning to be a tenant in the building, and I'm not sure exactly what that business is, but I think it's more of a typical office building. I don't know if you want to, do you know what, are you going to be moving into this building? Investment company. So mainly professional office, I think, is what we're anticipating, but it'll be developed as a spec building, so it'll be flexible in terms of the size and the number of users that might go into that building, but
Well,
it'll be.
The reason I'm asking is that's an intersection of two section roads, you know, even though it's curved. And you have commercial, retail on one side, and what is being planned for the area immediately north of this site and the one that's kitty corner to this site? Those are both vacant. What are they being planned for?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Condi, the property to the north is a assemblage of smaller properties. We don't have any development plan in there today. They're designated on the general plan for low-density residential. That happens to be the designation. The northeast corner, we do have a Case Inn that is a grocery-anchored shopping center, although it does not include 5 acres at the hard corner. But that's what's in, just came in last week, matter of fact.
Okay. And I'm asking because it's a mile from, 91st and a mile, it's a miles from the other section roads. And it would seem that if you're having a lot of residential, that, there needs to be, we used to plan every corner for that. I'd hate to see, what has become strip malls at corners that just, end up being vacant. So professional office where people in the neighborhood, I would assume you are hoping will work. So it will be an employment center also. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, we've, through our public outreach efforts on 83 Marketplace, one of the things that we heard is that there isn't a lot of places for small businesses to be located within the neighborhood area. There's a lot of lawyers and real estate professionals that would like to have a small office building within the area so they're not commuting out to different cities or different locations. There's a lot of residential rooftops that are being planned in this area, not just what exists, but I think to the north, there's a significant residential development that's being planned. And so this would provide support and service to those residents and the existing residents for employment opportunities within these two buildings. But because of the size of the buildings, they would be more small-scale employment opportunities, more for local businesses than any kind of a regional type of office development.
Okay, so like a small dentist office, an attorney's office, a real estate agent, which are smaller now, that everybody works out of their home.
Exactly,
Those
yeah.
kind of places where it's easy to come in and stop and do neighborhood shopping. Okay,
Yep.
that's what I needed to know. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, Commissioner Alsop?
Thank you, Chairman. I just wanted to go on the record and say I've been heavily involved in this intersection, in this area. I'm a neighbor, and I think it's the perfect use for this intersection. And I'm in full support of this. I'm very familiar with every aspect of everything that's going in here, and I think it'll complement everything that's going in there. And so I'm really comfortable with that. I think you guys have done a great job. I'm familiar with LVA, and what's going to be going in across the street, I'm personally looking forward to. So I just want to go on the record and say that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Patterson?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I also think this is a good use for that corner. My only concern is traffic wanting to go west on Happy Valley Road. The only way you can do that is to make a U-turn at Happy Valley at 83rd, turn around and go back. Did the traffic study indicate any problem with that movement?
That's a good question. I'm not the expert in traffic, but I do have the traffic study here, and I know that it was reviewed by staff and it was approved by staff. I don't know if I can directly answer that question in terms of the number of trips that might make those U-turns, but I know that the traffic study was submitted and reviewed and accepted by staff to meet all of the city requirements in terms of traffic movements and volumes.
The staff have any concern about that movement?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Patterson, I think one thing to recognize is Happy Valley Road, as opposed to 83rd, which is a major arterial, Happy Valley Road is a limited access parkway. So the purpose of limited access parkway is to move goods and people as efficiently as possible and limit the amount of interruptions, to the roadway. So I think with our limited access parkway, I believe, and I'm not certain, but I believe the cuts that we allow are at roughly the quarter-mile or half-mile point along a roadway section. So I think the fact that this property was so small and too close to the intersection prevented full access into the site.
Yeah, I guess I was just concerned about the potential volume of U-turns.
Commissioner Patterson, members of the commission, I believe it's because of the limited access parkway, there was reticence to having a left turn lane into this site because of the purpose of that parkway and because of the location next, close to the intersection. So if we allowed this one and other developments, I think it starts to degrade the whole purpose of that parkway. So I believe that was the purpose, and unless you have anything else to add, Randy?
I did find, I think, an answer to your question in the traffic study. What the traffic study is showing is during the peak hour trips, the number of U-turns that are proposed is 11. It's 11 on the PM peak, and it's 2 on the AM peak on average as part of the project. So not a ton of projected U-turns that are proposed. Now, because this is an office development and not a retail development, the number of in and out traffic is significantly less because you don't have customers coming in and out all day. You typically have employees that come in the morning, employees that leave in the afternoon or go out for lunch, and so the number of trips, according to this traffic study, is very minimal in terms of those U-turn movements.
Okay, well, thank you. I feel better about that number.
Okay. Any other question of the applicant? All right, seeing none. I don't have any speaker request forms, so we're going to close the public hearing. Are there any further questions of staff on this, on either the GPA or the Z 1721? And seeing none, I will entertain a motion. We were going to take them one at a time, so I'll take a motion on item 5R, GPA 17-03. Commissioner Lewski.
Yeah, I'd like to, I'd do a motion to recommend approval of GPA 1703 to the City Council.
Okay, we have a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, Commissioner Lewski moved and Commissioner Alsop seconded. Please go ahead and vote. Okay, and the motion passes. We will now also take up item 6R, Z17-21. Do I have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I motion that we recommend approval of item 6R Z1721.
All right, moved by Commissioner Alsop,
I'll second.
seconded by Commissioner Lewis. Would you please vote? And that motion passes unanimously. Okay, thank you. So that is it for the new business. We will move on to staff reports.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioners, just a couple items tonight. First and foremost, we'd like to welcome our two new commissioners, John Albright and Joanna Condi. Thank you for joining us. You were sworn in and you're here tonight, so welcome. Also, our next meeting, normally scheduled for December 21st, has been canceled due to lack of items. But our next formal meeting will be January 4th. That will be our first meeting of 2018. So we made it through 2017. This is our last meeting of the year. During that first meeting, January 4th, there will be election of officers. We will also see another commissioner, Linda Grice, will be joining us that night. That will be her first meeting. I'm trying to think if there's anything else.
I think with Ms. Grice joining the commission, that means we have a departing commissioner. And Mr. Commissioner Lewis, I wasn't available at the last commission meeting when we presented our plaque, but I want to say you've been on the commission for 12 years and you've seen a lot of development, and I just want to express my appreciation and my gratitude to you and your service here. You've always been somebody that I've found to be very pragmatic and very, you ask very good questions, and I really appreciate your service, and we're going to miss you on the commission, but I just wanted to thank you for your participation.
That goes for all of us, too. Okay. Do we have any members of the public? Seeing none. Let's see, we have next is Commissioner, I'm sorry, updates from the commissioners. Anybody would like to speak? We have Commissioner Lewski? Or no? That was for the motion. How about Commissioner Nelson?
I just wanted to add to Chris's remarks. Bill, it's been a pleasure having you up here as a member or new member. I've learned from you since day one. You've been one of those that you ask, as Chris said, great questions. You bring a lot of wisdom and insightfulness to this board, and your presence will be missed. So appreciate your service. Thank you. Appreciate you having you here, and maybe we'll see you out in the audience sometime, just to stop by and say hello, all right?
He's already threatened that.
Thank you for everything.
May I?
Yeah, please do.
Thank you. I just wanted to briefly say thank you to Mayor Kathy Carlott for allowing me to remain on the commission and be a part of this important work that we do with the city here. I really have enjoyed it. And thank you to my fellow commissioners over the years. We've done a lot of interesting cases, that's for sure. Sometimes we've had standing room only out here and loud people, and sometimes we've had empty rooms, but it's all been towards the better of the city. But most of all, I want to thank the staff. You guys you really emulate professionalism. Chris and all your staff members, you guys have been fantastic to work with. You've always been professional. You've always provided us with enough information to make an informed decision or a good recommendation to the city council. And I've worked for the government almost all my adult life, and you guys are more professional than any organization I have ever worked with. And I really, really appreciate it. I enjoyed working with you guys, so thank you very much. With that, thank you all. Best of luck to you. Continue the great work, and maybe I'll see you in the audience one of these times. Thank you.
So,
I think there's a meeting at the beginning of next year we might be interested in seeing you at.
Fill out a speaker request.
Please do. No, we really are going to miss you, Bill. Okay, seeing no other requests to speak and seeing no further business, I'm going to call this meeting adjourned. Thank you all.